But the real nightmare wasn't the surgery. It was what he discovered after: the stolen money, the forged documents, and the betrayal that almost destroyed him.
I always believed that strength meant pushing through pain, pretending everything was fine, and showing up even when my body begged me not to. That belief almost cost me my life. 8 months ago, what I thought was a simple stomach ache turned into the complete unraveling of my marriage, my finances, and every single illusion I had about loyalty. It started in the middle of a strategy meeting at work, one of those soul-draining corporate gatherings where everyone nods at meaningless jargon and pretends PowerPoints hold divine truth. I tried to ignore the burning ache twisting inside my gut, telling myself it was just stress or maybe bad takeout. But pain has a way of demanding to be heard, and mine chose the worst possible moment. Suddenly, my vision blurred, my breathing tightened, and when I reached for my coffee mug, my hand shook so violently I nearly dropped it. Cold sweat soaked my shirt collar. I'd never felt fear like that before. Seconds later, my legs gave out, my head hit the conference table, and the room erupted into muffled panic. The next thing I remember clearly is waking up on the floor with paramedics crouched beside me, their voices calm but urgent. They'd placed an oxygen mask over my face, trying to reassure me, but every breath felt like knives twisting through my abdomen. Somehow, through trembling hands and blinding pain, I managed to call my wife, Jessica. She answered with irritation in her voice, complaining that she couldn't talk because her brother Derek had a big investor pitch that day. I tried to tell her I was being taken to the hospital, that it was an emergency. She hung up before I could finish a single sentence. They rushed me into emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix, which had become complicated by peritonitis. The surgeon later told me that if I had waited any longer, it could have killed me. When I woke up days later, feeling weak and foggy, the first thing the nurse asked was whether anyone from my family was coming. The answer was no. For 3 long days, that door opened countless times, but never for her. No messages, no calls, not even a quick check-in to see if I was alive. I kept telling the nurses she was busy with work, but after a while, even I stopped believing my own excuses. When Jessica finally walked in, she wasn't frantic or apologetic. She looked like she'd stepped out of a photo shoot, flawless makeup, perfect hair, with her brother right behind her, bragging loudly about his successful pitch. They treated my hospital room like it was their personal lounge. She barely even looked at me, and when she did, her eyes held politeness, not concern. It hit me then that I only mattered to them when it was convenient. But the real turning point, the moment everything truly shifted, came when a nurse named Camille walked in with a clipboard. She asked Jessica to sign some updated paperwork. Jessica scoffed, insisting she didn't need to sign anything because she was my wife. That's when Camille calmly explained that I had legally changed my emergency contact and medical proxy right after my surgery. I had given both to Marcus, my closest friend, the one person who had driven 2 hours the night of my operation and slept in a plastic chair beside me when my own wife wouldn't even answer her phone. Jessica went pale, trembling with shock. "You did this to me?" she demanded. "Not, are you okay?" Not, "Why didn't you tell me?" Just pure outrage that I had finally drawn a boundary. I looked at her and said the simple truth. You weren't here, Marcus was. Family is the person who shows up. I thought the hardest part was behind me. I was so wrong. When I finally returned home with a recovery plan and a mountain of prescriptions, the medical bills started arriving. They were all addressed only to me. We're talking 6 figures. I panicked. We had insurance. We always paid our premiums on time. Nothing made any sense. Then my friend Sophia, who worked in HR, called with some shocking news. Every single document tied to my benefits enrollment had been intentionally deleted. Not lost, not a mistake erased. And the only person with access during that time? Jessica. She had volunteered with HR 2 years earlier, insisting she'd take care of my paperwork just to help out. Instead, she had systematically stripped away the coverage that would have saved my finances. Marcus sat across from me at my kitchen table as the bills stacked higher and higher. I felt like my life was collapsing in slow motion. And then came the next blow. A forensic accountant named Diana, who Marcus had hired. Discovered that $42,000 was missing from my savings money I'd been building up for our future home. Jessica had siphoned every single dollar straight into her brother Derek's startup. My world just stopped. All my sacrifices, the long nights at work, the birthdays I missed just to hit bonuses, they had stolen it all. But they didn't stop there. Sophia dug even deeper and uncovered something darker. My grandfather had left me a trust fund that was supposed to unlock on my 30th birthday. I never saw a cent of it because the release papers had been forged. My signature appeared on the document during the exact week I'd been hospitalized with a concussion years ago. Jessica had power of attorney during that time, and Derek had signed as the witness. They stole my inheritance, the last gift my grandfather ever left me. Diana pulled on every thread, building a financial autopsy that was thicker than a textbook. She found transfers to shell companies, credit card charges matching Derek's travel, and withdrawals cleverly hidden between different accounts. It was a maze of theft held together by pure arrogance. When we finally confronted Jessica and Derek in a restaurant, they arrived looking confident, ready to manipulate the situation just like they always did. They had no idea we were coming with evidence. When Diana dropped the massive file on the table, Jessica's face drained of all color instantly. Derek tried to bluff his way out of it, but it was too late. The accounts were already frozen, the authorities had been notified, and every single trail led directly to them. Within weeks, Derek's company collapsed under a federal investigation. Jessica was fired in disgrace. Even her own father cut ties with her, telling me he didn't recognize the person she'd become. I moved into a small loft apartment with tall windows that let sunlight pour in, painting the walls with new beginnings. I started rebuilding my life with Marcus and Sophia, a life free of lies and betrayal. When Diana finally informed me that my trust fund and all the stolen money were being restored, I just cried. Not because of the money, but because the nightmare was finally over. One evening, Jessica showed up at my door. She looked hollow-eyed and defeated, claiming she'd lost everything and begging for another chance. I told her gently but firmly that she had already made her choices. She chose her brother over my life, over our marriage, over basic honesty. I wasn't angry anymore, but I was done. 8 months later, I'm healing. My finances are recovered. My trust fund is restored. And my real family, Marcus and Sophia, are the people who stood beside me when everything fell apart. Jessica and Derek are now awaiting trial. I'm no longer writing a life that revolves around people who only take. I'm building one with people who show up. And for the first time in a long, long time, the story finally feels like my own. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever felt taken for granted or betrayed, know that you have the strength to rewrite your own narrative. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the hardest moments.